this is where I get uneasy about AI being called genius. Now, if you go to futureoflife.org, they recently came out with an AI safety index. It's basically a report card of how the biggest AI models are performing across 6 different categories. So the 6 different categories were risk assessments, current harms, safety frameworks, existential safety, governance and accountability, and information sharing. So, let me give you a quick rundown of what those 6 actually mean on there. So like the risk assessment is, what is the company's way of identifying and assessing risk, like for their models? They're just kind of looking at, hey, how are you evaluating the models to see where there are risks? And do we feel that, they're adequate for what they're doing? Current harms is, how are these models performing in overall safety outcomes rather than what they're just asked to do for benchmarks, things like that. Like, what is the potential that these models could in current state, what are the chances that they're going to pick a harmful outcome over what's best, right? Where are they going to deviate? The safety frameworks have to do with how they are, the company's perspective on designing safety into the platform. What are the frameworks and established protocols for how they ensure safety is there? Existential safety has to do with what are the company's positions in managing extreme risks from future AI. Like, what are they doing to prevent existential problems with AI in the future? Governance and accountability has to do with, well, what kind of accountability structures are in place to make sure they actually stick to all this stuff. It's one thing to say, yes, we prioritize safety, we prioritize these safety frameworks. Okay, but what happens if it comes out you aren't following any of that? Is there any sort of accountability in place? What happens if, how are you protecting whistleblowers to make sure that they can come out and say, hey, and you're not just squelching them down and shutting them up with a, settlement or something like that. And then how are they sharing information? How open are they with sharing the information they have about their AI models? And so what they did is they went through and they assessed 7 major AI models: Anthropic, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, xAI, which is Grok, Meta, Zipu AI, and DeepSeek. So 2 Chinese models, primarily Chinese models, and then 5 of the big US ones. And let's just say the report card, if I got this report card, I probably would have been grounded for a very long time. Okay. And I would highly encourage you. It's a long document, just so you know, it's like 101 pages, but you can quickly go to the executive summary and see, hey, how are we doing overall? Anthropic got the best grade out of everybody, which was a C+. Okay, so the very best grade we got was a C+. Then it went down to F. Now, I think there's definitely some bias built into this because, ironically, the American, AIs got way better grades than the Chinese AIs. Now, granted, I did look at their methodologies, and so I do think, even just from some of the other things I've seen, I don't think they just went, how do we make Chinese AI look bad? But I think when you look at some of this stuff, it's like, I don't think it's totally neutral. So don't for a second think I'm looking at this going, this is perfectly neutral. But the fact that a C+ was the best grade, then it went into C's, C-, OpenAI was a C, Google DeepMind was a C- overall. Then we got into Grok, which was a D, matched by Meta, which was a D. And then both Chinese models got Fs. Not great. And the even more concerning part is that the safety frameworks and the existential safety was actually one of the lowest categories. So considering, hey, do we have frameworks in place for making sure that these models are designed with safety and the best interests of the end users in mind? Not real good. Existential safety, like, hey, do we have plans in place in case something goes off the rails, or do we know what we would do if something blows up? Actually, highest grade there was a D. So that one was really bad. And, you can all go, oh, well, that's never going to happen. That's what everybody says till it does. And unfortunately, what the report card showed is when it does, which it will at some point, basically nobody's prepared for what we'll do. Anthropic was the only one that really even had any governance and accountability. Everyone else was a C- or below, which I think is extremely discouraging, because it means that even all the other ones, all the other categories, you go, hey, but they got an A in this, or an A in their current harms and all this. And it's like, right, but they don't have any governance or accountability in place should that change. Or if they say we're going to do this and then something goes sideways, there's really nothing in place to hold them accountable to any of this stuff. So what I would say, if you look at this, because it's discouraging. I will be the first to say this wasn't news to me. I've been close to some stuff and have been trying to warn people, like, guys, this stuff it's not genius. All right. AI is not genius. It's not the best thing since sliced bread. It's not going to solve all of the world's problems. And at the end of the day, there's still people behind it. So as messed up as we are, now you're talking about amplifying the messed upness of the people in charge and the people making decisions with AI that clearly is messed up, like C+ best grade out of all of them. So I don't talk about this to incite panic or to make anybody freak out or anything, so much as to say, listen, look, if you are buying the hype that AI will fix everything, that AI is inherently good, is going to solve your problems, is going to make your life better, is in your best interest, and that these companies are thinking of your best interest, and the products they create are going to work with you to bring out your best, by default, they're not. They're not. And this, I think, further highlights just how risky what we're playing with is. I think what's most concerning to me, given 5 of these players are US based and this new AI Act, where we have the lowest grades on this scorecard now became even less of a priority than they already were. So while, the highest grade on a safety framework was a C and an existential safety was a D, I would be interested to watch where this report is. This came out in July, just this month. I would be curious to see where it is next year. I would wager a bet that we're going to watch those categories drop. And I think current harms are going to get worse because we're learning more and more about how this stuff is affecting people. And a lot of the information sharing is going to, I just think in general, we're going to see these scores drop, not move up, which I think is equally concerning. So with that, one of the other how to respond, this just goes back to the AI action plan. To me, reinforces, if you're waiting on the government to protect you from the harms of AI, the government is not going to. This validates that if you're waiting on the AI companies to protect you from the harms of AI, the AI companies are not going to protect you from the harms of AI. You have to take ownership and responsibility of your AI use, the dependency and trust you put in AI, the way you use AI, what you do with it, how much you share with it, what you let, where you let it into your life, where you don't. You are going to have to take responsibility for that. And if you don't, it is going to take you for a ride. And it's not a ride you're going to like at all. That much I can promise you. So if you still are at this stage where you're kind of sticking your head in the sand, if you're hoping it's just going to get better, it's not. It's not.